Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Now then, this week we're joined by Ross, Cheshire and Martin Riffel. They've just got back from a visa-free trip all the way to Asia, and they called it Bosphorus or Bust. So they travelled to the UK, Europe and on to Istanbul, which is the gateway, or probably should say the bridgeway to Asia. All right, fellas, over to you. Let's get on with it. This is Ross and
Hey,
Riff.
no, you're right.
World travellers. They've been further than we ever have. It's embarrassing, isn't it, really? We do this podcast.
Just to rub salt into the wounds, world travellers, and it was my first time world travelling after only owning the bike for about 10 months as well, and get my license in September as well.
Riff, I didn't realise you were coming today. Hello.
I didn't either. He made
Did you not? What did you fail your test on, Ross? 3 times.
The most frustrating thing would be that I'd end up with like a perfect pass, like no minors, but then there was one situation on one of my tests where I'd go out, like say there's a load of packed cars and there's a van way off in the distance and he's coming down. I thought, well, there's plenty of time for me to sort of go in and then come back in. But then he was going at a decent pace, so then he had to stop to let me come in. And then that was considered a fail. And then the other fail was I was going around this roundabout. Again, my fault. I'll hold my hands up to it. I couldn't remember what speed it was. I didn't know if it was 30 or 40. So I went near the middle, like 34, 35, and the examiner said, it's 30, Ross. I was like, for fuck. And again, look, perfect pass, but one fail on there. And that was like, oh, for God's sake.
Was this 34 going around the roundabout?
No.
Okay.
Let's think about how we're going to start this, because obviously your dad's messaged us a couple of times. I think he's done it twice now. He messaged us to say that you were doing the trip, and then after you'd done the trip, and then you got the MCN thing.
So it was really my dad pecking your head to try and join in on the podcast. It's like, look, my son's going to get him on the podcast now, get him on it, because my dad listens to you guys religiously, he does.
He's all right, your dad. He's all right with us. We like him.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
So you seem to ride with him quite a bit.
Yeah, to be fair, my dad was the one that taught me how to ride motorbikes, really, from like the age of 6. We had a PB50, TY80, a WL125R, and then I had a CBR, which was my first sort of like road bike. Normally, it was only ever one bike in the household. It was either my dad having a bike, or he gave his sons, me and my brothers, a bike that we shared. Came to the point where I was old enough and earning enough money to buy my own bike. And he said, oh, if my son can buy his own bike, I can have my own one. So he had a KTM 640 Adventure, he did, because he used to like the off-road, whereas I was sort of pressured into getting a road bike from the lads at work. But I loved the CBR. It was brilliant. At the ABR festival, I took it on the off-road course, and it was just a right laugh. It was. And then the year after that, I took it on the off-road course again, like Riff's on his GS, Zach's on his KLR. They're all on the off-road bikes, and there's me with a white CBR, bounce along the off-road track, and then I plow it into a hedge. And Zach, quick as a flash, he goes, Ross, you can't park there, mate.
Did you go through the big puddle? Was the big puddle there?
I buried my gas in that this year. It was up over the seat. It was really bad.
Oh.
I got off my bike and tried to pull it out the bog, and it was up to my waist. It was that deep.
Without you dropping it, it was over the seat?
Yeah.
Really? Bloody
It
hell.
stood upright. I went into it about the 5th time, and it was getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And this 5th time, I just went into it, and it just bogged in. And I was trying to kick it, and my knees were underwater. I was trying to kick the thing to start it.
This week, we're delighted to welcome 2 legends that have just got back from a trip all the way through Europe to Asia, Ross, Cheshire, and Martin Riffel, known as Riff. Tell us who you are and where you are at the moment and where you've just come back from.
I'm Ross, I'm 27. This year, I did my first intercontinental trip from hillbilly Welsh town, Wrexham, to cross over to the River Bosphorus. Did it on my 2012 KTM 990 Adventure.
I'm Matt Riffel. Everyone calls me Riff. I'm from the mighty Wrexham as well. I'm 58 on Saturday. Happy birthday, me. Last year, I went to Marrakesh by myself and did 8,000 miles and 18 countries. And ever since I did it, Ross has been pestering me to death, when you're going again. So jokingly, I said, right, I'm going to Istanbul. And then he said, right, I'm coming with you. So we went to Istanbul and did 28 countries on the classic 1150 GS Adventure.
Your trip was called Bosphorus or Bust. The Bosphorus, for the idiots that listen to this podcast who have no geographical knowledge. To be honest, I had to Google it before I spoke to you, so I didn't know either. It's like a crossing that goes through the middle of Istanbul. It's like a river that goes through the middle of Istanbul, which joins the Black Sea to the Marmara Sea. That river, once you go over that line, you've gone from Europe into Asia, right?
One of my favourite things is going over the big bridge. There's a massive big sign that says "Welcome to Asia." Now, I've had welcome to England, welcome to France, I've had welcome to countries, but never welcome to another continent, which was pretty cool.
So you didn't take the most direct route, because I looked at the most direct route today, and the most direct route would take you just under, 2,200 miles, but you kind of headed north and went a little somewhere slightly different?
The golden rule is if you come motorbiking with me, definitely no motorways. Even going down to Dover, we didn't go on the motorway, and I got a £90 fine going through London for my exhaust or whatever you call it. When we got out the tunnel, we just headed north then, because I must admit one of the things was just to maximise the amount of countries. So we zigzagged to make sure we did as many as we could. 26 was the original plan, but when we got through to Czech Republic, we thought we may as well go into Poland as we're here. And then when we got to Poland, we said, we may as well go to Ukraine while we're here, give it a go. And it was surprisingly easy to get into Ukraine. I thought it'd be a nightmare.
Did you see any signs of the war whilst you were in Ukraine?
Going up to the border guard, and there was a gorgeous woman there, like blonde hair, lovely tan, blue eyes, makeup, nails, everything. But she was in full military gear, carrying a submachine gun and a pistol. And I was like, okay, that just looks so rock and roll, that does. And she looks at us and said, what is your purpose of entering this country? I just went, tourist? And she looked at me, winked, and went, stamp my passport, and welcome to Ukraine. And then that was it. Wow. And we go through it. We were like, oh, we don't know what it's like. And you go through it, and it was like the cheapest petrol you can think of. It was like 90 pence a litre relative to the UK. And then we're going through, we were expecting to see like military trucks or anything. Nope, didn't see anything. We went through one town, and then there was people outside having a coffee, having a fag, having a meal, kids playing in the playground. And we went out of the town, and we stopped on the side of the road to buy some peaches from a stall. You were like in this oasis farmland. It was just absolutely glorious. The weather was perfect, and you couldn't feel any safer, really.
I suppose the war is very far to the east, really. It's a big old country, isn't it, Ukraine?
Yeah, we weren't that daft to go all the way to the east side.
How long did you stay in Ukraine for? How far did you go in, or were you kind of in and out in the same day?
In and out in the same day, really. Probably did about 100 miles, would you say? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Left-hand corner.
We only sort of like snipped the corner of it, really. We really did it for the sticker.
Because he'd never been out of Britain on his bike before. He ordered tons of country stickers. Every time we crossed the border, we had to pull over and have a sticker ceremony. But the funniest one, we were in Poland, and there were these policemen on the side of the road called us over. And he said, where are you going? And we said, oh, just tourists passing through. Ross showed him all his stickers. And he said, well, where's our sticker? And he made us do the sticker ceremony while he watched.
The one I watched the other day, which had me in hysterics, was the one where I think, Riff, you said that Ross had bored the police so much that they ended up just driving away.
Couldn't get past this truck, following it for miles and miles and miles. When I finally got past him, a policeman pulled me over and said, overtaking on double white lines, and he got his book out and started to write something. And I said, oh, before you do that, come and look at Ross's stickers. And I thought, Ross will bore him to death. So Ross started telling him. In the end, he just shook his head and got in his car and drove off.
There's a 30-year age gap between you guys. How did you actually meet, and how come were you riding together?
Ross has got no friends, so he hangs out with us old guys. I used to have a lovely mullet, big long mullet on my back, and it was glorious. I had loads of hair. And then his dad cut it off.
I'm not sure there is such a thing as a lovely mullet.
I've never forgiven him. Then again, he was a barber, and I asked him to do it. I've known Steve since the 80s, you know what I mean? Me and Steve are the same age. And me and my mates, you know, over the last few years, we've been to the Pyrenees, we did Denmark and Sweden, we've done Ireland, we've done Scotland loads of times. I wanted to go further afield, so I went to Morocco, and no one had come with me because it was 5 weeks off. And then when I went, Ross then pestered me to come with me. So I said, I've been everywhere. I don't know where to go. Kind of in a jokey sort of way. I said, well, I've never been to Asia. Let's go to Istanbul. He said, I'll get time off work. And that's how it come about.
So how long was the trip then?
We planned it for 28 days, but we ended up actually finishing it in 23 days. I sort of extended mine by my own fruition. just in all these countries, and we're coming back through, got our tickets for the ferry, and we're just about to enter no man's land in Calais. And then I look to my right and see this Land Rover Defender, and it was being pushed by 2 security guards. The car just died out of nowhere. Jump off the bike and give him a hand, pushing it along. And I was expecting to see like some Tory Colin Git that's been off a fox hunting trip or something like that. So jump out the car. I look at the corner. Bloody hell, it was a Belgian girl who took part. If you guys go on More 4, there's a documentary called The Last Overland. And she takes part in that with like these Land Rovers drive from Singapore to London. And then I said, I can help you as much as I can, but I've got like a week off, but I'm very limited in my knowledge of Land Rovers. And she's like, no, please stay, because Calais is relatively quite dangerous. Push the car to one side. And there was another lad living in Calais, does up Land Rovers as a hobby, and he was off for a week as well. So he's just like, I cannot believe God is literally on my side.
In the meantime, I was on the ferry going, where the bloody hell has Ross got to? We done 6,000 miles and we got to Calais and I lost him.
What happened after that?
She got in contact with this French lad called Pierre, really nice lad. He had a week off, and it was just an awesome 3 days where it was 3 young adults working on an old Land Rover that's 30 years old and just having the best time.
Was this the Land Rover that the guy's grandfather had driven to Asia or wherever?
Yeah, Tim Slessor, yeah. It's not the same car. That's the trip that she took part in. She was part of the film crew.
What was it called again?
The Last Overland. First Overland is what they did in the 50s, and then the Last Overland is what they did in 2019, where they were going back from Singapore to London.
And it ran in the end. You got it all going and fixed.
Yeah, like we were so pleased with ourselves. Like Pierre, he's so knowledgeable. The thing is with Pierre, he can't speak English. I can't speak French, but anything technical, like saying like the tappers thing, he could speak perfect English, like saying like the Gamjane and the diamond bird and the bush runs. But then when I asked him, I said, "Oh, what are you doing for your birthday?" I don't understand. Sorry.
So you did 6,000 miles in 28 days. Just a quick bit of mental arithmetic. That's about 218 miles a day. How were you travelling then? Were you keeping an eye on the clock? Were you travelling entirely on the roads, or did you jump onto the Tet at any point?
We went into Albania and suddenly the tarmac disappeared. We went over the mountains and for miles and miles and miles, it was really rough, old shoddy roads. There was no particular plan. We just generally wanted to head that way. So when we got up in the morning, it was, well, where should we head? That way. And we rode till we got fed up. And we're literally down the motorway. You can do 200 miles in 3 hours or whatever. We were taking like 13 hours to do 200 miles. We were literally up in the morning and it was getting dark and we were still going until we got fed up because we didn't do a straight line anywhere. We literally went, oh, up there looks good. And we take a detour and go up there. And the reason we don't do motorways, and I refuse to do them, is because on a motorway you see nothing. When you go off-road, we were coming through Greece and we came across the Corinth Canal. It wasn't even on the list. We were just come around the corner and bloody hell, that's smart. What's that? I had to Google it. That's the Corinth Canal, mate. That is super cool. And he flew his drone round it. And then we were in Poland and we saw this church, and we were in Montenegro. We saw this castle. And the only planning I did when I went to Morocco was I booked a ferry to Cherbourg. And the only planning we did for this, we booked the tunnel to Calais. Every day we wanted to generally head that way. And that was pretty the only planning. And each country was a totally different thing. So we know that Ukraine's got the cheapest fuel. Hungary it was €1 for a pint there. Greece was the hottest. One day we were in Greece, and it was that hot. My hands were burning. It was that hot. We just parked up on the side of the road, stripped off and ran in the sea. The plan was to head southeast to get to Istanbul. And on the way back, we called it the Balkan Bonanza. We wanted to make a point that we did all 11 countries. And we found out that when we got to Kosovo, you cannot go from Kosovo into Serbia. We had to go into Montenegro and round and into they won't let you cross the border. Things like that. We didn't know till we got there. We just made it up. It was great. But riding your bike, you find these things. We went to Pristina. I presume that Kosovo might be a lot of bombed out buildings, even from the 90s. Well, it was the most futuristic city I've ever seen. They had shopping malls and all the famous brand names. But coming into Pristina, It chucked it down with rain, and the road had just washed away. And we were going through puddles up over the foot pegs. And then suddenly you got into the city, and it was a beautiful, futuristic city. The bikes held up well, didn't they?
Considering the age of them and the amount of knocks that they had, 2 days before the trip, I crashed my bike, crashed it into a Corsa. And then I was just like, well, I've literally spent a year. The initial idea was about a year ago. I was like, there's no way I am missing out on this trip. So literally with cracked ribs and bruised shoulders and everything, the handlebars were bent, the bolts that the handlebar goes in, that they were all twisted, took it all apart, cut off all the bent bits, bought some straight bits, and straightened anything else that needed straightening. Keep going. There's no way stopping me. Throughout the whole trip, all my bike was doing was just fucking wobbling like this. It's just always got like some sort of imbalance in.
The great thing about these old bikes, people go, you never go in on that 20-year-old bike. But the great thing about the old bikes is you can fix them. You know, these modern technological ones with this, that, and the other on them, especially the GS, which I just happen to love. I was going into Hungary, and it was pouring down with rain, and I come to this roundabout, and the road was full of oil, and I slid on it, and I slid for about 50 yards down the road, cracked all the rocker cover. So next morning, we just laid it on its side, took the rocker cover off. Ross had some instant gasket. We instant gassed it, wrapped a sock around it, and it did for another few hundred miles. It was great.
Even I'll second the idea of the GS, that his GS is really fixable, because literally, like, when I'm trying to fix mine, I've got to take the crash bar, the tank, the seat, and everything. Whereas like Riff's rocker cover, it was just 4 bolts, and the rocker arms and everything was like, it is really quite fixable.
Can I just say that if you dropped your KTM down, you wouldn't have scraped the rocker cover, though, because the rockers are in a sensible place, not stuck on the fucking side of the engine, sticking out a mile.
The thing is, it was that much oil and rain on the road. There wasn't a mark on his jacket or his truck. He hydroplaned for 50 yards until he crashed into the roundabout himself. Wasn't a mark on him.
Were you guys using comms on the trip?
Yeah, until we got to Poland, and then the rain got in them then, and I'd never used them before. I was a bit of I'm not interested in that. Ross had a cheap pair, and we put them in, and suddenly I was changed. I thought, it's marvellous being able to talk to each other, because when I went past the truck or round a long bend, I could say, you're all right, Ross, you can come, there's nothing coming. And getting through traffic made easier and everything. And it was going really well until we got to Poland, and it poured with rain, and it sort of killed them off a little bit.
I was the same, Riff. I didn't use intercoms for years and resisted them. And now I think back to all the trips I've been on without them and think, Christ, it was such hard work without them. Especially, as you say, when you're going through a town or something, just to be able to say, you know, turning left here, turning right, and to be able to chat with each other about the navigation. It doesn't have to be one who knows where they're going in front. Anyone can be in front, because you can give out instruction, or either way.
I wouldn't go anywhere without them now, but you all have to make sure you've got the same one, don't you? Either a Senna or a...
Ryan F9 did a good video, like saying, he did all the review, like saying this one's good because XYZ, this one's good because ABC, but the best intercom you can ever get is whatever your mates have got. Like, so even if they got the cheapest shit, just go for the same one that they've got.
A word to people listening, always get mesh. Whichever one you get, it's the latest technology. It's a bit more expensive, but all you need to do is, once you've paired once, it works every time. So easy that you'll drive into a garage, and if somebody else is on the same mesh channel, you can talk to them as well. When we did our last trip, whenever we ended up on the same mesh as somebody else, I'd go, hello, and welcome to the Trail and Adventure. It was funny a couple of times. But...
It's something that surprises me, because the very second I could get on the road when I was a lad, I bought a DT and I was on the road. And it was a cheap thing, but I was on the road. I was mobile. I was moving. All my mates, Mike, Tor, and everything, all the same age as me. We've always had bikes of different descriptions, from new ones to old ones. There's always been a bike in the garage. And a friend of ours, Zach, who's only 33, he's moved up from Swansea, and like Ross, who's only 27, they hang around with us old men, because none of the young lads are buying crazy motorbikes. It seems to be everyone you see on the road at cafes and everything these days are all in their 50s. Where are these young lads who are rebuilding their two-strokes? And it's shocking, because we go out and we have to drag these young idiots around with us, don't we? Haven't you got your own friends?
I'm intrigued, Ross, because you seem to do quite a few trips with your dad, whether it just be to festivals or whatever. But how does the relationship with your dad work? And I'm interested because I've always not discouraged, but not encouraged I've got 3 boys. I've not encouraged them really with motorbikes, but kind of once they hit 25, then I'll probably support them to get motorbikes once their brains are actually fucking fully developed so they don't kill themselves. Fingers crossed. How's it work with your dad?
He's been like my best mate ever since I was born because it was just perfect. I've always been quite lucky. My family have always been interested in motorbikes. Like there's my granddad, Jeff. He's been into motorbikes probably when Riff started. He's been in motorbikes all his life. And he stopped riding last year and he's 87 now he is. And he just stopped riding last year he did due to health.
Dude.
He's always been into motorbikes. My Uncle Martin has always been into motorbikes. My Uncle Jonty's been into motorbikes. And so has my dad. It started off at a young age when I was 6 years old. Like my dad wanted to have a motorbike, but I think my mum was saying, no, you can't. So, oh, what if I give my kids motorbikes that they can share? So it's a shared toy. And then as we sort of grew older, he got me a TY80 and he took me practice on some trails and do some trail riding. My balance was normally quite good, but eventually I just kept falling and dropping it and banging it. I was just like, oh, I'm struggling with this.
Nothing changed.
When I turned 17, he got WR125R. And then that was brilliant for nipping to and from to college. The point when it really started to bond with me and my dad with the motorbikes is when I bought my first bike, which was the CBR. I think I saw the twinkle in my dad's eye saying that, but now I feel left out. I want to go with him. Dad did this clever trick. We were doing at this house. I just bought a motorbike, but I was keeping up my granddad's. So my dad came with this idea. He built a shed. He said to my mum, oh, I'm building a shed. And my mum was like, why are you building a shed? Oh, so Ross can put his bike in our shed so he doesn't have to leave it at granddad's. And mum's like, oh, okay, yeah. She goes away on a girls' trip with her friends. And the next thing, I see this van pull up. I was like, Dad's been gone for a while. I don't know where to go. And I go to the van, and at the back of the van was a KTM 640. So he waited till my mum was out and snuck her motorbike so that he could ride with his son. It was only when my mum was coming down, there was me fixing with my bike. And my mum was like, what's that in there? That's been there ages, Mum. So, is that Steve's? Is that Dad's? Yeah, did you know he's had it ages? My dad's always the one, I want to use the word encouraging. Like my dad has always been the one who's always favoured motorbikes and is really chuffed to bits that I'm into it. But my mum is sort of like totally the opposite. She'd happily break my legs to stop me riding motorbikes. She's always sort of like the thing like seeing me hurt myself, like all mothers do.
Well, she's got a fair point though. You have crashed about 3 times in the last couple of months by the sound of it.
If I'll be honest, probably about 5. I've got one serious injury from a motorbike. I ripped my knee open while my WR. The scar I got here was snowboarding. Scar I got here was on a... So, yeah, pretty much I've always been accident prone. So I'm not really giving myself the best image from my mum. And I think as I've gotten older, I've tried to sort of earn my mum's respect with motorbikes. And I think she's starting to respect it a little bit more because it's like it's something that her husband and her son enjoying it at the same time as well.
It's only going to get worse because I'm nearly 60 and I decided to buy myself a gas 250 two-stroke at the age of 58, as you do. So Ross decided to buy KTM 250 two-stroke, and now Zach's bought a 300 two-stroke. So the injuries are only going to get worse. On the point with Ross with his dad, I personally think it's marvellous because me and my dad didn't even talk, let alone talk about motorbikes. I had a mum exactly the same. My mum come to see me in hospital quite a few times. And when I've been, like last year, we went to the Dragon Rally. I went with Ross and his dad, and it's marvellous to see a father and son not only at a rally, but talking about motorbikes and having a love of motorbikes. And I wish I had that with my dad, but what a bonding thing it is for him and his dad to have a love of motorbikes.
Clive, you should probably just quickly tell your little story about what your dad said to you when you fell off your motorbike.
So I was 16 on an FS1E. I don't think I've told the story on the. Have I told the story on the podcast?
Maybe
before?
not.
I've not heard it. No.
I had this ridiculous accident. 16 FS1E, riding along a dual carriageway, probably not even doing 30 miles an hour. Just pulled away from some traffic lights. There was a game of cricket over there. I'm kind of glancing at the game of cricket. Look back. There's a fucking car parked right in front of me. Just about managed to swerve the car, miss it with the bike, but my shin hit the bumper on the car, snapped both bones clean in half. I'm lying on the floor. Okay, no, absolute, nightmare. The pain starts to kick in, and, you can imagine how painful having 2 snapped bones is. But I tried to I didn't feel I'd done it straight away. I stood up in it, the bone pierced the skin at the back. Fucking horrible. So, anyway, I'm in hospital in absolute agony. My mum and dad get there. My dad said to me, just looks at me and went, "You fuck motorbikes up for this family." That was it. No sympathy.
We used to have 125 two-strokes, and we always said at the beginning, no racing today. But that was only excuse to get away first. Anyway, we were out racing one day. I came back into the village, bombing it through the village, and then closely followed by my mate Mike, and then no sign of Tony. So we turned round, went back in the village. There's an ambulance there, and Tony getting hied into the back of an ambulance. Hit a car, we ran away, and we didn't want to see his mum. So we put the bikes in the garage and got ready because we were going out. We phoned a taxi. We get in, and he goes, "Have you seen these crazy bikers around this village?" I said, "Aye, they're lunatics, aren't they?" He goes, "You'd never guess what happened to me just a few hours ago." "What was that?" He goes, "These idiots come through the village like bloody lunatics, and then I hit the third one and knocked him off his bike." And we're there, "Oh, what they like? They're lunatics, and they wouldn't allow him on the bloody road." We got in the taxi that broke Tone's leg.
In your day-to-day navigation, I'm just interested how you did this. Did you have...
We're getting back to the trip now.
Yeah, that's what this thing was about. Yeah.
Were you using a mixture of paper maps and sat-navs, or were you just on sat-navs or just on paper? How did
It was
work?
a combination of Google Maps and following Riff's compass on his bike. That was it. Like
Compass
saying
on a
if
bike?
Yeah.
I bought this compass, and it was £6 off Amazon, and it's sticky. Pulled a little sticker off and stuck it on my screen, and it's literally a little ball in a thingy. Like, it's quite accurate. I use that. If you want to go north, south, east, west, doesn't tell you where the junctions are or anything like that, but you know when you're going north, south, east, west. Last year I got into Morocco, and as I come into Morocco, I lost phone signal, I lost GPS, lost everything, and I did the whole of Morocco. Now I mean Rabat, Casablanca, Marrakesh, right round the Atlas Mountains to the Sahara Desert, back up to Fez, and I did it all on my £6 compass.
If you get, the tank's quite big on that GS. You could get like a sundial on it just to give you the time as well.
We were in the mountains of Montenegro and Slovenia and places like that, and you can laugh, but a few times we didn't know which way we were pointing, and literally, well, Ross, I think that's north. I think we should generally head up there. It gives you a general direction. And when you haven't got a daily plan, some people plan their trips and they've got to be here and they've got to be here and they must do this many miles. I hate that. Some days we did 120 miles. Some days we did 400 miles. It was depending on what we saw, whether we wanted to stop, and you're literally that direction. And that's pretty much how we did it.
It's a good way of doing it, though. So where were you finding accommodation? Were you hosteling or camping?
At the end of each day, when we were getting fed up, because when you've been 13 hours a day, we were on the bikes because we'd stop, we'd start, take photos, have lunch, go this way, go the wrong way, have to come back, go up there this way. At the end of the day, we certainly got to a certain points where we said, right, that's it. Booking.com, filter, cheapest. Oh, €10. There's a hostel up the road for €10. That'll do.
So one of my favourite things about travelling is getting to eat different types of food, and food in Europe is particularly good. Spain and France. How was the food in the other 26 countries?
Day one was the shittest place for food in England, but everything else was just superb. Like stopping at little cafes in France. Like we'd go into Germany, they're like, "Give us your verse," and there was a fucking awesome verse. It was fantastic. And then trying like local things, like going to Poland, trying the dumplings.
We tried to eat what that country was. We had Hungarian goulash, we had German wurst, we had gyros in Greece, kebabs in Turkey.
At the end of the trip, do you sort of feel like you've accomplished this mission and then you just dash home, or do you still keep having these great experiences on the way back?
If I go to a country now that I've been to before, I try to go a different way around it. We came a different way through Belgium, right up to the last minute. And I think the only reason I went home, I could have had a few more days, was because by the time I got to Calais, there was nowhere for me to go around that area that I haven't done before. So I was really chuffed when Ross bumped into that girl, because it meant he could have a few more days.
So, Ross, why didn't you take your dad?
I begged him to come along. I wanted him to come along, but he just couldn't get the time off. Because the thing is, my dad works like so hard. He works unbelievably hard. He works like 6 days a week. And then as a Saturday job, he still does the barber and he still runs the barber shop. I'm hoping that now that he's getting to the age where, not that he's retiring, but it's sort of like around the corner, I'm hoping. So hopefully now he'll sort of like take time and start enjoying the stuff that he loves to do, like which is like motorbikes and things with family. The Dragon Rally that we do, that's brilliant because that's a Saturday and a Sunday. and it's like an event that we have in Wales. You guys should come along. It's fantastic. It started off in the 60s, and basically it was to separate the men from the boys. Basically, like everyone in the summer, everyone's going out on their bikes, going to the Ace Cafe, the Horseshoe Pass, or whatever. The idea to separate the men from the boys to sort of go in the dead of winter and just have them piss up in this field. Back in the day, it was just literally just all the tents around the fire. Whereas now it's gone a little bit better. Like saying they got like a band, showed the rugby on, and they got a bar there. It's been fantastic. The first time I went, it was the first time I met Riff. The only memory that my dad had of Riff was cutting his mullet off. With our mate Zach, he had a spare ticket. And he said, I'll go and see Riff. He'll be there. I see this fucking 6-foot giant come up towards me, like literally overshadowing me there like that. Ross, like he points at me and he's like, yeah, that's me. And he goes, what the fuck are you wearing that Ed Sheeran t-shirt for? So that was his first introduction. I had an Ed Sheeran t-shirt. He said, what the fuck are you wearing that thing for? And he turns to my dad. He's like, Steve, Riff? And he, rather than saying, how have you been? He goes, Steve, you cut my fucking mullet off. And that was their introduction after 30 years gap.
When's this Dragon Rally then? What time of year?
This year it's the 10th and 11th of February. It's notoriously the worst week of the year, the first week of February. That's why they have it there. It's meant to be in line with the Crystal Rally in Sweden and the Elephant Rally in Germany.
I'm going to do some pre-separating of the men from the boys. I'm just laying my cards on the table. I'm out.
What else happens at this rally? Is it just standing around drinking beer?
It is literally just an excuse for a piss up. That's all it is.
So Noel's definitely out as well.
Oh, come on.
Standing around in the piss up in the most astonishingly bad weather you're ever likely to have. Like
Ross, you've got a YouTube channel, I believe.
Yeah, I have. Just only starting off, so it's not anything spectacular at the moment, but I really want to try and get a big go of it. So at the moment, whilst I'm in work during my breaks, I'm editing the video of our trip. Even though we did our trip in July and August, and we're now in October now, because I'm doing this sort of like as a hobby thing. I'm not really giving myself a deadline. But then I know that my dad said that we record these on the Wednesdays and they get published on the Monday. So then I'm trying to take this opportunity, trying to set myself a deadline to get it finished. Because I've done quite a bit of it. I'm about sort of quarter or halfway through. Whereas I'm thinking if I just slog on it this weekend, I'll get it released on the Monday this time the podcast is out. So hopefully the same day that this podcast is out, I can start saying, oh, look what I got from my YouTube channel.
What's your YouTube channel called?
It's called Roscoe Rides.
Roscoe Rides.
ROSSCO space Rides.
Now, this podcast won't be out next Monday. It'll be the Monday
Don't tell him that.
Oh, phew.
Or maybe not. Or maybe we will put it out on Monday.
Again, I'm a little bit embarrassed because it's like I'm only just I want to try and make as good of a video as I possibly can. So even if it takes me like months to do it, I'm not that fussed because it's like I'm only just starting out. You guys know more on the YouTube thing. How was it for you guys starting off?
Well, it was easy for me because my son works as a cameraman anyway on sports stuff. And it's just done 2 years at a film and television production course. So he did it all, really. We had 2 cameras set up. So this weekend we're doing the second video. We're going to Noel's Honda Museum. We're going to have a 3 camera setup. We've got proper studio lights and everything coming along. It's going to be
interesting.
A quality production.
Yeah. Just your way of traveling. It's so interesting to hear how you've done it because it's so simplistic in the way you go about it, but it works so brilliantly, doesn't it?
Literally, people have asked me saying, how did you plan it? Okay, literally, have you got a passport?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you got some form of money or some form of transport? Yes. Well, what the fuck are you doing talking to me then? Yeah. You could just go. That's how easy it is.
Yeah.
On about not planning anything. Last year, I came over Andorra, came down into France, and I wanted to go to Perpignan. So I knew on my little compass, head east. And all of a sudden, I came past a sign saying, welcome to Spain. Well, that's south. Why am I in Spain? And I came through a place that's about 5 miles by 5 miles called Levia. Have you ever heard of Levia?
No.
Levia. It's an enclave in France that belongs to Spain. I'd never heard of it.
Right.
So the great thing about having no plans, you come across places you've never even heard of.
We got into Ukraine as well. That was superb. And then we didn't know, saying on how we were going to get the boat across from Turkey to Greece. So it was we'll just wing it. And it worked out fine. And then even as we were getting to the port to get the ferry, we found another boat because Riff and I love a ferry. So every time we go on Google Maps, we see extra ferries to go on it. So we're literally going along, and then there were the ferries that goes from Turkey to Turkey, And then we found another one that goes from Turkey to Greece, and that was superb.
They build roads so that you don't have to go across rivers like motorways, and we will do a 50-mile detour just to go on that old ferry a mile across the river. Like,
tell them about when we were crossing Romania to Bulgaria.
Down the Danube, there's a ferry across from Romania into Bulgaria. When I was up in the Austrian mountains, and I had to show Ross this, so we made a detour, I was going up the mountain, I went round the Gelos Pass, through the snow, got up in the snow line. All of a sudden, the road came to a roundabout. There was one road in, one road out. And I thought, I've got to a dead end in the mountains. So I was talking to the locals, and I said, where can I go from here? They said, get on the train. I said, I can't get on the train. I'm on my motorbike. They said, no, get on the train. Round the back of this building, there's this train. It looks like a cattle wagon. They fold the sides down. You ride your bike on 9 miles through the mountain, and you're through the other side. Apparently, it used to be the longest tunnel in Europe. It's in a place called Malnitz in Austria. 9-mile tunnel through the mountains. That was good.
Amazing.
A massive thanks to the guys for doing that. That was a really enjoyable hour or so that we spent chatting to those guys. And it just shows you, if you want to go and have a good trip, just get on your bike and go. Fantastic. So that's it for another week. We will be back soon. It may or may not be next week, but we have got loads of great guests lined up. I just think we may have a gap in the schedule next week. We were in Knowles Honda Museum, though, making a film. So that should be out in a couple of weeks. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hopefully there'll be a few more good quality films coming on there. All right, next time. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.